Friends, happy Wednesday. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and welcome to Ask a Flower Farmer. And what better place than me to be than on a flower farm, right, y'all? So friends, so nice to be with you today. We are still wearing a little light jacket here in Virginia in mid-May. It's kind of wild and crazy, but I'm happy to be here today for us to spend about 30 minutes together. And I will do my best to answer your questions about anything to do with cut flower growing, cut flower business, cut flower seed starting, whatever you've got. You can just post your questions down in the bubble with the question mark in it at the bottom of your screen. That way I don't miss your question by having to scroll through the comments. And so let's talk about what's going on here on the farm. So first off, if you're a member of my club, I just want to say two big reminders to you. We just dropped a brand new masterclass in there. It's harvesting strategies. Totally loved making those videos for you guys. And also today at 2 p.m., meet me inside the club for the sewing circle. The link's in there to hook up with me, and we're going to meet at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And of course the recordings are in there also. So I just wanted to give a shout out to my club members. We're just really having a lot of fun, and I just never knew what that was all about, and totally loving it. And so take a look at my garden. That's the biggest portion of the cool flower. That's the fall planted cool flower garden you're seeing there. I have another garden in the back, which was a lot of the very early spring, as well as there's some over here. And y'all, I'm telling you, we have the most beautiful straw flowers that I have grown in a lot of years. They were just gorgeous transplants. They were planted right on time, 8 weeks before my last frost, and they are simply gorgeous. So this weekend, there's so much going on, y'all. This weekend is my once a year in-person workshop. It only happens once a year, y'all, because it's a big deal. I mean, it's a lot of work for us to prepare, to just give these folks the very best experience. And one of the things they're going to do is make bouquets. We're hoping they get to cut flowers. It's looking like it might be rainy, but we'll have plenty of flowers already cut. And I can't wait for them to have these straw flowers as well as a bunch of other flowers, right? So we just are, we only have one group of flowers left to be planted out in the garden for what is called my first recipe, which is that first succession planting. And that's the amaranth family. They haven't been planted out in the garden, but other than that, our first succession is in the ground of warm. We are knee-deep harvesting cool flowers, right? And Bobo is now knee-deep in starting seeds for the second succession. So y'all, it's just this big old freight train of planting flowers, cutting flowers, starting flowers, this the whole 9 yards. And just really enjoying it this year in a very different way than I've had in years past. And friends, if you are not sure how to do all that, you know that my book, my book, The Cut Flower Handbook, is a deep dive on wrapping up warm and cool flowers. My book, Cool Flowers, will take you down the cool flower path, but the Cut Flower Handbook has everything that you need to start a cut flower garden, and then it features over 66 flowers, both from warm and cool, to get you going. And so would love to send you that, and of course you'll find that on our website. So let's see, what else should I tell you? Oh, this is bundle week. If you don't know what that is the once an offer that we make of putting my online course and Dave Dowling's online course together for a big old savings of over $240. And that is just available for this week. So let me just tell you some things you can type in the comments for information you might want. If you want a sneak peek inside our courses and to see what that is all about, you can comment bundle here, and that'll DM you a link straight to the page where you can get the videos to watch a session, as well as to purchase the course. This is our customers' number one special offer that they prefer. It's always our biggest seller. And it's because it's the basics, which is my course, which is all about learning how to farm, build your garden, get customers, how do you harvest, condition. It's the real foundation footprint. Then Dave's course starts building on that by adding bulbs and perennials and woodies. So they're kind of like two natural fits together. So we would love for you to take advantage of that if you would like. And then also, if you want the book link, just comment book, and it'll automatically DM you a link straight to my book. So I see we have some questions here, so let's get started. All right. Morning, Lisa. Coxcomb question. I remember Dave saying that Celosia doesn't like to be stressed in the tray. Started mine on 316, but noticed the coxcomb has started little tiny blooms. Should I toss them? Could I pinch off the buds and still plant? So first off, they do not like to be stressed. You know, Celosia is one of our biggest cash crops. We grow tons. Funny enough, I was preparing my favorite warm and cool season flowers for one of the programs for this Saturday for my in-person workshop, and I had to like cut myself off. I was adding so many Celosia images to talk about. I had to just finally stop. Celosia is a huge crop for us. And I think my great success with growing Celosias is because the wind's blowing. I don't think it's going to blow my camera over. Woo, it's really windy. Now I got my foot on the tripod. Let me bring this down just a little bit. I think that part of why I'm so successful with growing Celosias is because I soil block, which means they never suffer, they never get root bound, and they are very, very happy. So I don't know if you're soil blocking or not, but if you can get them, I would plant them before I'd pinch them. If it's warm enough. I mean, we just got ours in the ground right here. So I wouldn't pinch and plant. That's two big stresses at the same time. I just try not to do that. I would plant them, let them get established 10 to 14 days, then just pinch them. Get them snugged into nice conditions, give them a little food maybe, and then pinch them after they've gotten established. So I definitely wouldn't pinch them. Pitch them, not pinch, pitch, throw away. It's definitely worth a try, and start more. I mean, we're just constantly starting Celosias, right? So hopefully that'll help you. But I do find that soil blocking, and by the way, on the show Friday, our shopping show, we're featuring the Swift blocker, which is the commercial blocker. And I'll be sowing seeds and talking about soil blocking more if you aren't familiar with it. Soil blocking just really opened the door to me to flower farming, 2 decades ago. And anyway, so give that a whirl and see how it works. Not sure what I'm doing wrong. My feverfew is not blooming, lots of foliage and no flowers. So I'm just thinking, I would take a guess. They probably don't like fertilizer. I'm just trying to think if what I remember about that. I mean, we grow tons of feverfew. I've never had that happen. And so it may not be time yet, right? Maybe it's just they aren't headed up yet, right? And some plants like yarrow, cosmos, those are plants that perhaps feverfew, because I'm not sure or not, if you give them fertilizer, it makes them grow a lot of vegetation, but they never bud up. So I would just give them time, and, plant more. Feverfew is another one of those cool flowers that you can succession plant. And we never have enough. When I talked to a farmer florist that said to me that they grow every single feverfew they can get their hands on, and we plant it in the fall, we plant it in the very early spring, and then we plant it again, and sometimes even again. Depends on where we are in business. So give it a little time and no food, right? Love everything you do. Oh, thank you, Flower Mom. How soon after using a silage tarp can I till up the lawn to plant my next summer annual, specifically for zinnias and celosia? All right, so if you're using tarp, if I understand you correctly, to kill the lawn where you want to plant your garden, it's when you lift the tarp and everything's dead. You see no green anything. And I would expect, unless you live in Florida, deep south, like in zone 10, it's not been hot enough for that to happen. I mean, that works really well once the days are climbing over 80 to 85. And it really, that's what, it toasts everything underneath there. And when you pull the tarp back and everything is dead, that's when you can do that. And so that tilling is going to bring up fresh weed seeds. And in fact, if you really want to go for the weed prevention thing, if you feel you need to till because your soil is super compact and needs some organic matter incorporated like compost into it, I would till and then I'd cover it again for probably 14 days to toast any weed seeds on the surface, then plant, So that would be, but you're looking for dead stuff underneath there. How do y'all water it all? So, what a great question. I was just on a great podcast yesterday. Joy Gardening, Gardening Joy. It won't be out till June. Y'all hear about it when it comes out. It's a really big, popular, out of our circle of podcasts. Anyway, she was so surprised. We were talking about building soil and irrigating. She's a budding cut flower fancier, a home gardener that wants to do a cutting garden. And she was quite surprised to hear that every bed on this farm, when we make it, typically gets irrigation laid. The T-tape is laid. Our bed maker lays that, right? But rarely, if ever, is that irrigation ever hooked up. And that is because, number one, we get a lot of rain here. I'm in southeastern Virginia. We get about 50 inches a year. We do have some dry times, but more often we have wet more than we want. And so we don't typically have to irrigate per se, but we're set up to do it in the event that we actually need it. And so irrigation, if you're doing if you have a big garden like we have, irrigation saves money, saves water, makes it super easy to do. And T-tape is the type of irrigation that we actually use. Do you plant Bupleurum only as a cool filler? I'm not sure I understand that. We plant a lot of Bupleurum. We always have, because when I was, we're the next month's master class in my club. And if y'all are interested in the club, you can comment club here and it'll DM you the link. The master class next month is making bouquets. And I talk about in that master class I talk about how nobody's ever had enough Bupleurum. When you start making bouquets, like mass bouquets for supermarkets or farmers markets or subscriptions, the way that we do it, you learn why you always want to have a lot of Bupleurum. And so our last succession, because it is a cool season hardy annual and I am in the South, it's a little too late now to actually, for us, so we're in mid-May. Chances if we planted Bupleurum now, it would just never get tall enough and disease and pests would get it, because someday soon we're supposed to heat up, right? But if I had been succession planting it since mid-February, this would be a great year to have Bupleurum, coming along, to have it until June or July, actually. So Bupleurum is a cool season hardy annual. It is an awesome filler. It is also an awesome in-demand commercial crop. And we absolutely love it. I purchased your bundle course. Love it. Oh, thank you. Feel like I have you and Dave on my shoulder as I work in the field. So friends, if y'all aren't familiar, first off, I have been on social media. I'm on YouTube tonight. Tonight I'm talking about it's easy to start a flower farming business, but it's hard to keep it. Meaning it's the long haul that takes people out. And I would love to have you join me or check the replay. Yesterday morning, I did an Instagram live at 7 a.m. in the morning, kind of telling my story about becoming a flower farmer. No more less likely suspect to become a flower farmer than me, y'all. I didn't come from a farming family. I live in the middle of the city. Anyway, and then this past Monday on YouTube, Dave and I talked about the course, and I'll be talking about it tonight and tomorrow night. I'm talking about, are there too many flower farmers? Which you might want to tune into that here on Instagram, right? So our courses, my course and Dave's course, our online courses, first off, you have lifetime unlimited access. Once you have us, you have us. We have private communities where you get ongoing support from your community as well as us. If the questions aren't answered in the course and they're not in the frequently asked questions, then you still get to ask questions in the private community. And we would love to have you join us. And we feel like Dave and I are really speaking out these days. There is so much shallow noise on the internet about flower farming. What I mean by that is surface stuff. The deep stuff that you need, the rock foundation. It's like going to graduate school, but you haven't even been to elementary school and, middle school and high school and actually college, right? And that's the longevity. We look around and see that there's so many of us that have been in it for a couple of decades. And there are some amazingly successful flower farmers out there that have only been growing for 5 years and 10 years, but there should be so many more. We need more professional flower farmers. And these courses are mine and Dave's brains in a way that you can watch them over and over, and you can have support, and it's just an amazing community, and it's like a lifeline. And so you can comment bundle here to actually get the link to it. And it's only available, I think it's only available till Friday night. But join me tonight anyway. So thank you, Heaven Sent Flower Farm, for saying that. And the whole reason I started to say that was we have an app. So you can watch it and listen on your phone like it's podcasts. And you can be out in the field. This is what we hear from students all the time. We have thousands of students that they're out in the field planting, and they'll pull out their course and look up that plant that Dave had. What spacing did Dave say to plant that? Harvesting information. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience with that. My snapdragons aren't very tall, planted too late, February, not fall, worth pulling up or deep cut. We are in the 70s and the 80s. So it all really depends on, do you have enough space to leave them, but you know that you planted them too late? And once you fall plant, you will never make that mistake again. If you're in zone 5, 6, mainly 6, 7, 8, or 9, and you fall plant, you won't believe the abundance and how tall the stems are. Our stems are like topping out at 36 inches sometimes. And it's just absolutely amazing. So if you have space, you could leave them, right, and see what happens. But Bobo and I have learned that we pull stuff. It's like it just tortures us. It's like we're feeling the need to cut it all the time, and it's too short to be useful. It's a waste of morale, time, and energy. So I'll leave that up to you whether you actually have it. So I saw, is it for beginners? We're from the UK, and does that matter? So I just saw the growing root allotment. So first off, we have tons of students in the UK, all over the world actually. Australia and the UK are the biggest countries that we have the largest following. And yes, basics is perfect for beginners. That's what it's all about. And then Dave's class pushes you over the top. So we'd love to have you join, no matter where you are in the world, but the UK is very relevant. When should I harvest allium, gladiator, and drumstick? How long do they hold in the cooler? Preservative. So I have not grown. I don't typically grow bulbs and perennials. I am almost 100%, with the exception of a few peonies and some tuberoses. We grow annuals. I have not grown allium for many, many years. And so that would definitely be a Dave Dowling question. Dave's course, bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more, that's the kind of stuff. Which varieties, what size bulbs you should purchase. So you'll have to ask someone else that question. I am sorry, I cannot mislead you and tell you the wrong answer, because I have not grown that in years and years. Can't get my Gumpfriner or my Solosia to germinate. Is there a trick? Well, we've just planted 6 or 7 different trays of Gumphrina as well. I mean, and gobs of Celosia. You know, it's all about following the habits and the steps, I guess, getting tongue-tied, y'all, of seed starting. Seedling heat mat. Did you cover or not cover the seed according to what the directions said? And so heat is usually really the problem. So a seedling heat mat, and then you move them to a grow light once 50% pop. Celosia is surface sown, and that really needs moisture. We lay wide weave burlap on our soil blocks. So there's a lot of steps, and there's a lot of great resources over on our website. I have a course called Seed Starting Made Easy. I think it's like $30. It's an hour. It's 116 minutes long, so an hour and 45 minutes, broken up into a ton of little sessions. I talk about planting in plug trays for sunflowers, soil blocking, direct sowing, the Swift blocker, and it talks about the steps and even direct sowing out in the garden. So I would recommend that if you need it. Is it too late to start Rudbeckia seeds? So Rudbeckias are day length sensitive, meaning as the days begin. So we hit the longest day here in Virginia, mid-July is when the longest days are, right? And so this is May. Rudbeckia, it really might depend on where you are. You're right on the edge. We have some Rudbeckia in our grow room that's probably 3 or 4 weeks old that's getting ready to come outside. Frankly, I have all these seedlings that are beautiful in my grow room. I've been too afraid to bring them outside because I have this dadgum renegade squirrel that keeps getting in my trays and just messing them up, and I want them to be beautiful for our guests here on Saturday. Anyway, I have 2 trays of Rudbeckia, Indian Summer, I think, and Prairie Sun. And we're trying to test and we're trying to see how late can we plant them to get blooms later in the year. I mean, who doesn't want Rudbeckia in the fall? There are Rudbeckias that bloom later in the fall naturally, like Triloba, but we're looking to get those big heads. So it may be too late. Depends on where you are. But I'd say you're right on the line. If you plant them now, if you start them and plant them and they don't bloom, it's because of day length issues. So how do you calculate how much to grow for a season? So funny. Dave and I was just reviewing something. Maybe it was the master class or maybe it was me talking live. I'm jammering so much these days I can't keep it straight. You know, I don't even think about that. I look at the space that I have and I break it up into the succession blocks, and then I fully plant them and grow as much as I can. And because succession planting is pulling out and replanting constantly, I just don't give much thought to that. We do find that a lot of people these days really want forecasts. Well, when you're really out there flower farming, you don't even think about forecasting. You're just growing and planting and selling it all, right? So I don't really calculate. But my calculations is on my succession blocks, and then I think of when will those blocks be blooming and what would that make up? What are the big sellers? What markets am I selling in? There's a lot of other, for me in my business for all these years, that just played I never once thought, how many stems am I going to have? You get those numbers because first off, you will not find that information typically anywhere, because the skill of the grower, where you are, what plants you're growing, the environment and the weather, 100%. You know what, now that I'm thinking about it was in the master class. Because somebody asked that question, I gave a ballpark conservative because there's just too many variables from person to person. Because I can tell you, I can get 15 killer stems off of a snapdragon plant. Most people, get 4 to 5, right? And so it's skill and experience. So sorry to say I can't answer that question for you. Or that's how I do it. When are your spring planted cool flowers typically ready to be harvested? So I don't do any spring planting of cool flowers. I do very early spring, which is actually 8 weeks before my last frost date. And the lion's share of my cool flowers are actually fall planted. But we have been harvesting, it depends on the spring you're having, but typically we start in April and go through June. This might be a little bit later year. I mean, our garden is just busting wide open out there now because we're having such cool weather. This is very, not unusual, but this is a coolish May for us. Sometimes it's already in the 90s here, and that cuts it short, right? So, again, it just really depends. And those things like our stock is blooming, which was very early spring planted, our straw flowers. So it just depends on when you very early spring plant, you can really kind of count on those days to bloom that you see on seed packets. You can't count on that when you fall plant because your plants go dormant during the winter, right? Thank you. I'm outside Lynchburg, Virginia, so zone 7, so I will try the Rebecca and see what happens, starting sunflower, zinnias, cosmos, celosia, basil, anything else I can start this late in the season. First off, it is not late in the season. That is the biggest myth. That's my goal this year. I have a couple of business goals, and one of them is for people to understand that we are starting seeds on our farm constantly. The minute we stop summer successions, we're starting cool flowers. You know, so, I mean, we will be, it all depends on your frost dates, right? And I would guess Lynchburg is mountainous, that you're probably 3 or 4 weeks before us in the fall, first frost. But, I mean, you have time for a couple more successions of warm season tender annuals. And, of course, sunflowers, we plant up until 45 days before our first fall frost. So, you know, one of the biggest hooks that I really wanted to include with the Cut Flower Handbook is to really teach people as simply as possible when your planting windows are, and then how to figure out when do you have to stop planting for your temperatures. You know, I mean, there's even places in the book where you can write in your dates and stuff. Because it opens the world. You don't have to worry about it anymore. You actually know the facts. You know, okay, I can plant warm season tender annuals from this date to this date, and go for it, because that's where I find most people struggle. I, as an outdoor flower farmer, I have no hoop or greenhouses, y'all. And so that's the big thing about the basics course that I teach for our flower farming school is everything I do is outside in a garden. So it is open to everybody, and it's not about my zone. It's about applying it to wherever you are in the actual world. So learning that will open the door for you. So let's see what this is. Almost time to go. I am growing straw flowers for the first time and did not pinch them. Will they still branch? Will they still branch for me after I make the first cut? So yes, they will. You'll be very happy to know we didn't pinch ours either. And they are absolutely gorgeous out there. So here's another thing that I talk about in the book. Pinching, if you don't pinch the first harvest cut, if you make it at the proper spot on the plant, is the pinch. And the plant is going to go on to branch. It just may be later doing it, right? So Bobo and I have agreed that these are the biggest straw flowers ever. They're just so beautiful this year. It's just been a really great year for them. So yeah, straw flowers are one of the unsung heroes, if you ask me, of bouquet building. We never had enough straw flowers available to sell to our commercial customers because we used them up in our bouquet programs. They're super long lasting. They're bright colors. People absolutely they love touching them. They make the paper sound. And I just can't wait for our workshop guests to see them this week. Have you grown herbs in micro blocks before? What works and what doesn't? So if you're talking about the small blocker, I start 98% of everything we grow in the small 3/4 inch soil blocker, which is called the micro. We've grown herbs, vegetables. I mean, we start just about. The only thing we don't start in the micro is a seed that is so big that it'll bust the block open. Think zucchini, squash, sunflowers, sweet peas. Those go up to the next blocker. But all of our basil, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, almost all of our flower seeds are all started in the small blocker. And we're just huge fans of it. And why push the limits of the small blocker? Because it is so incredibly space savvy. So you get the most out of your seedling heat mat real estate and your grow lights, and it uses so much less soil. So I'm going to wrap it up with this comparison. So on a little, like, I think it's like 9x5 tray, you can fit 2 clusters of 20 of the 3/4 inch blocks. So that's 40 little blocks on that tray. 5 inches by about 8 or 9 or 10 inches. I'm not sure what it is, like maybe 8, 5 by 8 or so. That's 40 plants in that space. And we sow and grow in that block until they go to the garden. We don't bump most everything. I do bump tomatoes, eucalyptus, peppers, and eggplant, but that's pretty much it. And we don't grow those commercially, right? In that same footprint, you can only grow 8 2-inch blocks. So smaller is better for a lot of reasons. Stronger germination, easier to take care of them and control the environment. So we're just huge fans. I have learned through decades. I mean, we have started millions of seedlings in the small blocker, and they do great. Where we screw up is people start too early, or you know what I mean? So it takes a little learning curve, but yes, micro blocks all the way. All right, friends, it's time to wrap up because I've got to get ready for the sewing circle with my club members at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Remember, group, if you're a club member and you can't join me live, you can watch the recording. Jessie gets it downloaded and loaded in there, and it's available, I think, just for until the next one comes up. And I sewed last week or 2 weeks ago. I did ageratum cuttings. I do some sunflowers. I help Bobo with whatever sewing she needs done for us to do it together. All right, friends, thanks for joining me here. Remember the bundle, my course, Flower Farming School Online, the basics, annual crops, marketing, and more, and Dave Dowling's course, bulbs, perennials, and woodies, and more, are bundled together this week. Normally, I think it's like $1,400 for both of them. They're on sale this week only for $1,150. And friends, it'll lead you to build an amazing flower farming business. Hit the reset button, get yourself organized, get back to what really matters in business, y'all. And you have lifetime unlimited access. We have a private community where you get ongoing support if you need it. And it's deep. It's got everything you need. You will have no unanswered question. I can say that to you wholeheartedly. So check it out. You can comment bundle here if you want the link, or you can find it at the top of. Join me tonight on YouTube. I'm talking about business may be easy to start, but it's hard to keep it going. And I'm just going to talk about those struggles that take people out and how we are really feeding that struggle sometimes and how you can avoid that. All right, friends, until we meet again, and I hope to see you tonight. I hope to see you tomorrow night on Instagram talking about, are there too many flower farmers? And then on the show Friday is I'll be making commercial soil blocks with the Swift blocker. And we have a little special going on. All right, friends. Ciao for now.